Automakers are having a hard time selling EVs. Incentives have risen dramatically, and some of the sweetest deals can be found not in buying a car, but leasing it. It's basically a long-term rental that you don't have to worry about reselling later. Almost no concerns about maintenance. Monthly payments are low. And a loophole allows you to get a subsidy on an EV that wouldn't otherwise be eligible if you bought it. And while that might seem great for cash-starved Americans and for EV adoption in general, used EV prices have tanked. Boosting volume through leases risks pushing prices down even further.
There's just so much happening there that I don't think any of those automakers can even really predict a high level of accuracy, nor can the guidebooks predict what's this vehicle really going to be worth.
That could hurt this segment and the companies that make EVs in the long run. So why are EV lease prices so low, and what does it mean for automakers? Barclays analyst Dan Levy estimates that in May 2024, EV incentives, basically discounts, were 15 to 30% of the sticker price, significantly higher than the overall industry at 5 to 6%. That puts immense pressure on already tight and often negative EV margins. Tesla, which controls about 50% of the US EV market, was offering relatively low incentives on its Model 3, Model X, and Model S, but a 13% on its top-selling Model Y, though that promotion ended June 1st. Incentives on EVs from legacy automakers were much higher. Mass-market EVs, meaning not luxury cars, were discounted 25% off the original price. Incentives on a luxury EV, the Cadillac Lyriq from General Motors, hit what Levy called a surprisingly high value of $18,000, nearly a third off the sticker price.
Automakers are trying to push discounts because the EV demand is soft. You saw early on a lot of outright price cuts, a lot of this spurred by Tesla, but I think one of the observations is that the elasticity of demand is probably not what some were hoping for. And so they're resorting to other ways to discount, and leases are a key way.
While leases made up only about 23% of overall retail new vehicle sales in May of 2024, they were about 35% of total EV purchases and close to 70% of EVs sold by dealerships.
I think it's kind of those kick the can down the road problems where we know there's going to be a problem. What are you going to do with it later? Hopefully certifying those vehicles, making them seem even more appealing is going to help. Maybe bump up residuals a little bit or buy consumer confidence, or maybe they'll just be so cheap they're easy to move.
A lease lasts for a period of a few years, often 3, but it can vary. Once you've finished your term, you turn the car back in. There are options to buy out the lease if you want to. Monthly payments are usually lower than for a purchased car. There are, of course, stipulations to this, like limits on the number of miles you can drive, often 10,000 or 15,000 per year. That's usually negotiable at a cost at signing. But once you settle on a limit, going above your allowance is expensive, as much as 50 cents for every additional mile. You might also have to pay extra if you ding the car up beyond normal wear and tear. But if you can stand that, you'll be driving a brand new vehicle in mint condition that is less likely to give you problems. Any needed repairs are probably covered by warranty.
For the typical consumer out there, no, leasing is probably not a good product. It's a very specific type of buyer that would be interested in leasing, but there is a contingent out there that it works perfect for. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's a large portion. Are salespeople, people making business calls, and they write off their vehicle as part of their business expenses.
You also don't have to worry about selling the vehicle when you want to get rid of it. Drive it, and at the end of the term, turn it back in. Simple. Crucially, for EVs, swapping out a car every few years is also great for somebody who likes to have the latest and greatest in technology. The lower payments can also get you into a car that would be more expensive to buy. For example, leasing is far more popular in the luxury segment than in the mainstream. On average, EVs are still selling for about $9,000 more than the overall industry average. This may not be a perfect representation of American attitudes, but a survey of a few thousand consumers considering an EV in France, the UK, and Germany found they were twice as likely to prefer a lease. There are fewer concerns around battery longevity or the car becoming obsolete as technology improves.
They're going to use that leasing because it is the natural way to get customers to try out this product that are just not going to be willing to slap down $40,000 or $50,000 for something. They just have no idea whether this is going to work for them or not.
In addition, the Inflation Reduction Act restricts the $7,500 tax credit on new EV purchases to cars made in the U.S., along with some other criteria. Leasing the vehicle offers a workaround that allows buyers of foreign-made EVs to reap the benefit of this credit too. Prices for EV leases have been extremely low. As of June 24, 2024, Hyundai advertised a lease deal for its Ioniq 5, which to buy starts at $40,000, for $242 a month for 36 months, with about $3,500 due at signing and a 10,000-mile annual limit. That monthly payment is less than half the average lease payment for all cars in the U.S. as of May. The Chevrolet Blazer EV, with a starting sticker price of about $50,000, can be leased for $369 a month for 24 months, again with a $1,679 upfront payment and a total 20,000-mile limit. Polestar, a luxury performance vehicle brand, offers a lease for $299. In general, leases are a mixed bag for automakers.
You're better off having a customer buy and hold the vehicle because with extended length of time, they're going to have more, they run past the warranty, let's say, right? So you're going to have repairs, reconditioning, things like that.
On the other hand, leasing is a great way to move metal, which means get more cars off lots, especially useful when inventories are high. While it is taking dealers longer to sell any kind of car, it's taking many more days to sell an EV compared with internal combustion vehicles and hybrids. They are also a great way to get customers hooked on your brand. Loyalty rates for leasing are far higher than they are for purchases. The reason is simple. When you return your car to the dealership, you're providing the dealer with an immediate opportunity to put you in another car. Then the dealer sells the car you turn in the used market. This is where the trouble is. Used EV prices fell 16% year over year in May 2024, compared with just 12% for internal combustion vehicles. That same month, leased EVs were expected to hold about 55% of their value, while ICE vehicles were expected to hold closer to 62%. Levy said in his report that current residual rates, what vehicles are expected to be worth after the end of the lease term, might even be optimistic. Next-gen EVs could be either available in just a few years' time or on the horizon.
Flood the market with a bunch of leases, what happens? You end up with poor residual values. Kind of creates this vicious cycle. You're going to kill your residuals. It's very hard to dig yourself out of that hole. It's hard to convince a consumer then to even buy one of your cars and have it long term and, drive it till the wheels fall off and build loyalty and build a good impression because you think, these cars are worthless in a couple of years.
Automakers using aggressively attractive leasing terms on EVs now could be deferring losses into the future when those EVs come back to dealerships and have to be sold in a used market where prices are already dropping.
They're going to only get worse because you have so many more that will be flooding the market. I think that where it's that's one out of it's 2/3 or so, a little over 2/3 of current EVs being sold at dealerships. Those things, they're going to find their way back into the market in 2 or 3 years. And that is not going to do nothing but hurt. It's great for adoption purposes. It's great for consumers on the used end. I mean, I love that, right? A bunch of cheap used EVs running around.
It's possible it will hurt pure play EV companies like Tesla more than legacy automakers.
For companies like GM or Ford, even if they are increasing discounts on the EVs, the key thing to remember is that they are still at their core ICE vehicle manufacturers. And so that, yes, even if the EV demand is weak, there is a strong ICE profit stream to support the numbers.
For the Western OEMs and specifically in North America, EVs are still, quite loss-making. For Ford and GM, for instance, Ford is going to lose on their EV unit this year $5 to $5.5 billion. Just for context, the total business as a whole is $10 to $12 billion of profit this year. What that means is that X EVs, this is $16 billion of profit, and EVs are a $5 billion plus drag. GM, similarly, they don't actually break it out, but on our math, last year they lost $4.5 billion on their North America EV business, and that was on a business that X strike would have been $14 billion. So what it tells you is X the EV losses, it would have been closer to, $18 plus billion of profit.
The popularity of EV leasing is partly striking because a lot of people say it often isn't the smartest decision. On the one hand, payments and interest rates are usually lower than what you would pay to finance a vehicle. But you don't actually own the car you are paying for, and you are paying for it when it is depreciating fastest. Cars lose about 40 to 50% of their value in the first 3 years of ownership. So a lessee is really paying for all that depreciation only to turn around and hand the vehicle back in when chances are it's near the bottom of its depreciation curve. Some advisors say the most financially sound move in the long run is to buy a car and drive it around until it is no longer worth repairing. 2 back-to-back 3-year leases will cost you more than purchasing a car, usually. That's because cars can last a long time. The average age of the American fleet is nearly 13 years. But for this segment, the advantages for customers and the sheer need automakers have to move metal are outweighing the negatives.
We've gone from an environment that was EV euphoria to an EV winter. Like I said, EV euphoria was unlimited demand, capital markets willing to absorb losses, etc. We're in an EV winter today. Demand is facing a reset. And clearly there is some challenge in pivoting from the early adopters to the early majority.
The real question is, how long can it last?
Maybe in a year you'll still get a decent EV lease, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now, debatable.